time to cut off all communication with the outside world. Dust off your old VCR and gather your collection of mixtapes.
Then tease those bangs, put on your favorite pair of leg warmers. The nostalgia bug has bitten, and we're here to scratch the itch.
I'm Odell.
I'm Erin.
It's time to go back where we belong. Well, excuse me, are those Bugle Boy jeans you're wearing?
Oh.
Do you remember that commercial?
I do remember that commercial.
I had forgotten all about it, but then I follow a few 80s retro, 80s, 90s accounts on Instagram where they replay like commercials and show toys and clips from TV shows or whatever.
Yeah.
And they had the Bugle Boy commercial. I had completely forgot about the commercial and that Bugle Boys even existed.
I totally forgot about that.
And what a name. Like if you were approached today by someone saying, or one of your kids, Mom, will you buy me some Bugle Boy pants? Would you take them seriously?
I mean, that's a name of something.
Right.
That's
like
how
if
I
I'd
would
never
respond.
heard of it before, but back then it was like, oh yeah, Bugle Boy was.
Oh, everyone. What were those? Z Cavarici. You remember those jeans?
Yeah, the Z calves.
The Z calves. Oh, girl. I wore a pair when it was way out of style. Like it was years out of style, if not a decade. And someone mentioned it to me. They're like, oh my God, you've got Z Cavaricis. They still exist. Like, oh.
Were you wearing Keds too?
I was not wearing Keds, although I did wear Keds a lot when I was younger. Thank you, Kelly Kapowski.
Right.
It was all her influence.
So what's going on? We're here. What year? We're in 1992.
We're in 1992, the beginning of 1992.
Yeah. So we just jumped out of the 80s because our last three have been in the 80s. So
yes.
You're going to take us back to 92. What were you doing in 1992?
I can tell you exactly what I was doing on the day this movie was released.
I do not doubt that.
Okay. This movie today was released January 10th, 1992. That week, I had rehearsal that night. I know, because that week on that Monday, we started rehearsals for Oliver.
Okay.
And I played the Artful Dodger.
Okay.
And we had rehearsals Monday through Friday night until 9 p.m., Saturday morning, 9 to noon.
Okay.
So I know I was there because one of the first songs we learned was Consider Yourself. And that was the one I sang. So that is exactly what I was doing.
And wasn't that
January 10th, 1992?
Fell off the mattress while you were practicing Consider Yourself? Because I still remember.
That. Consider Yourself. Boom. Yeah, no, that was because my friend was auditioning for Oliver. That was a few years later. Okay. My friend was auditioning for Oliver. She was going through Consider Yourself. And in the background, this girl is like on top of the giant mattresses for Once Upon a Mattress and fell off like exactly in time to the music. It was all captured on recording. It was amazing. But no, that is exactly what I was doing. I was in 7th grade. And the show, doing Oliver, the director, it was the same person I did Annie for, and she loved me then. And then all of a sudden I do Oliver and she hated me so much. I still don't understand why, but I do remember that 2 nights before opening night, and it was the day before the TOS test, which is like the statewide assessment. Big deal, you know. Now it's all about the STAR testing and stuff down here. But this was the day before my big test, and I failed it horribly because that night she told me that I was, quote, living wallpaper and that I needed to go home and get a character and like come back with it the next night. Okay, I'm 13 years old. Sure. Let me run out and do that.
Buy one at Walmart.
What were you doing?
No, I was 19 going on 20. I was a month away from being 20. I was not yet in college because I'd taken 2 years off. So I didn't start college until the following September. So 9 months away from starting college. I was back in Idaho because I'd spent some time in Oregon, but I couldn't start college there because I was considered out of state. So,
oh, okay.
I had moved there temporarily. Then I went back to Idaho for a few months, and my address was at my aunt and uncle's house, so I could get residency.
Right.
So I had lived there, moved back to Idaho for a few months, and then went back to Oregon and then started college. So I don't know what exactly I was doing. I'm sure it wasn't much.
Right.
January in Idaho, midwinter, it was probably snowing and I was cold, or playing in the snow, something. I don't know.
Yeah.
So what was going on at this time? We talked about what we were doing or not doing, as a
yes.
me in my case. What was going on in the world?
So, as you know, this movie was released. The movie is The Hand That Rocks the Cradle, was released on January 10th, 1992. I looked up that date specifically, and there wasn't anything that was like huge on that day. So I looked at just January 92.
Yeah.
Oh, Odell, one of the most embarrassing moments. This was like before Trump and all of that, before we really knew what embarrassing moments were on an international scale. This was the year that George H.W. Bush vomited all over the Japanese prime minister. Do you remember that?
I do
and
remember
it was
that.
like such the scandal.
Yes, it was.
That he did that. And I swear it's like what cost him the election because people were so mortified by this situation. He got sick. Let's all calm down. He got sick.
Yeah.
Poor thing. But yeah, vomited all over the prime minister's lap. Jeffrey Dahmer pled guilty in the month of January 92, but guilty but insane.
Got it.
And then do you remember Fergie, the Duchess of York, our original Fergie? This was when, do you remember when she went on the airplane with a paper bag over her head? You don't remember that? It was such bizarre behavior. And I think this was after she and Andrew, I'm almost positive this is when she was ousted by the royal family around that time. And she didn't want people to take pictures, I guess. She went on an airplane and wearing a paper bag over her head. So I remember that scandal happen. I mean, God,
so obviously she wasn't allowed to ride on any private
She was
jets.
not on. I don't think so.
Commercial, obviously.
I think this was like a commercial flight that she went on, which tells me that this was after she was ousted by the royal family, and I guess didn't want any pictures. I'm going to do that from now. I can't believe she was able to do that. Like if I went into an airport right now with a paper bag over my head, I would be tackled immediately.
Exactly. Yeah, this was definitely pre 9/11.
Yeah. So those were the big, in the month of January, that was the big news. It's kind of like, I remember when I first lived in New Mexico, the news made me laugh so hard because it would be like, there was a hot air balloon in the sky. Like there would be in Houston, it's like, there were only 19 murders today, you know?
Right.
Yeah. So
that's what I noticed when I first moved to Houston was the number of crazy murders that happened on a daily basis because I'd moved from up here. But now it's in Portland, pretty much every day. It's like, okay, how many people got shot today? Because it's so out of control now.
Yeah. See, growing up in Houston, I was used to the news. So then when I lived in New Mexico, I was shocked. When I lived in New York, I was surprised. I thought I would be in an SVU episode every single day I was there. And you're not.
Yeah.
You're not at all. So that was disappointing. So let's take a look at this week. I'm going to look at the songs ending or the top 10 for the week ending January 18th. Okay. So number 10, Little Wild Side by Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch.
Oh, I remember that.
Oh, yes. We've got Finally by C.C. Peniston. Finally, it has happened to me.
Love that song.
Don't Let the Sun Go Down on Me
Don't
by
let
George Michael and Elton John, but you can. Adam's Groove by Hammer. Don't know it. And
it was
it's two
from
D's.
Yeah, it was MC Hammer when he changed his name from MC. He dropped the MC.
Right.
And it was the theme song to the Addams Family, the second Addams Family movie, or maybe the first Addams Family movie.
It was the first Addams Family movie, but I did not.
Yeah.
Interesting.
I do remember the song.
That sounds terrible. Number 6 was Smells Like Teen Spirit by Nirvana.
Yeah, I do.
Number 5, we got Hammer again. Because you know why?
Too legit.
This time, too legit to quit, Odell. He was not going to quit the Billboard Hot 100.
You remember that?
Yeah. Too legit to
Too
what was it? Too
legit
legit to quit. That's right. Oh my God, I can't even. It's so hard to say goodbye to yesterday by Boys to Men.
I
was never a Boys to Men fan.
Really? They had baby making music.
I mean, I remember I'll Make Love to You.
Yeah.
And I remember thinking, okay, you may. But I was never just never a Boys to Men fan. I don't know. Can't Let Go was number 3 by Mariah Carey.
I do remember that one.
Number 2, All for Love by Color Me Bad.
I do remember Color Me Bad.
And then Black or White by Michael Jackson.
Okay. Yep. That was
number 1.
No matter
if it's black or white. All right. So if I remember correctly, I get to pick 2 songs from the top 40. And I have picked my 2 songs.
And those would be?
I have one of my favorite. And I didn't write down what spot they had, but they are on the top 40. I did verify that. First one is Cream by Prince.
All right.
Cream.
I put that as one of my possibilities, but I figured you probably would. So, and I had it was number 30.
Oh, okay. Okay. The other one is one that I used to do all the time when I would send you my, the OGG. You know, when I would send my file to you for our previous podcast, I would always do the OGG, but really it's OPP. Yeah, you know me.
Right.
Well, naughty by nature. Those are my 2, Cream and OPP.
All right. Mine is, I had a few on here, but I think I'm going to go with Set Adrift on Memory Bliss by PM Dawn. It was number 11.
I'm not going to lie to you. There were a lot I did not recognize. You want to know what I was listening to in 1992?
Love to.
Little shows called Les Mis and Miss Saigon and various things like that. That's what I was listening to. So looking at this top 40, I was like, oh no, I knew like 3 songs.
Yeah. Set Adrift on Memory Bliss was like this huge thing. It was like a big black guy. Had this beautiful, like buttery voice. You'll probably remember it when you hear it. When you listen to the playlist. Yeah, so go check out our playlists. They're on, you can access them through the website. You can get links either to Apple Music or Spotify from there, and you can listen to them or not.
Jace. Well, so one thing I decided to chat about today, because in our family, we are big fans of SNL, like almost every cast, right? 90s was kind of a prime SNL time.
There were some pretty amazing players in the 90s.
Let me tell you who was there. So I looked at January 11th, that Saturday night, the day before Hand That Rocks the Cradle drops, right? The next night, our guest or our host was Rob Morrow from Northern Exposure. Did you ever watch that show?
Yeah.
Super cute.
Wasn't he was a doctor, right?
I think so. I never watched the show.
Doctor in Alaska.
Yes, I knew that much about it.
She was gorgeous.
Dana begins with a C.
Something. I just remember she had that little pixie, the black hair,
yeah,
the pixie
she was
cut, and she flew the airplane to get them because they couldn't get there by road.
Yes.
It was always snowy.
It was Dana. No. It was Dana something.
I thought it was Dana something. Maybe did I make that up?
You may have made that up. So sorry. Rob Morrow, Janine Turner. Oh, John Corbett was in it, remember?
Mm-hmm.
What are you thinking? We're both thinking of something else. She was so stinking cute.
What am I thinking of?
Dana Delaney.
Yes.
Is that who we're thinking of?
I think so.
Yes, that is exactly who. Oh, yes, absolutely. That is who we're thinking of. And she was China Beach.
Oh.
Barely remember that. And she was Desperate Housewives for a little bit.
Oh. Yeah, this is Janine Turner.
Yes.
I don't know.
Yeah, I know. So anyway, Rob Morrow was the host and the band was Nirvana.
Okay.
So at the time of this, Nirvana sang they Smells Like Teen Spirit, and they sang Territorial Pissings. I don't remember that song.
Either.
Okay.
Like as in a dog?
I mean, that's what it sounds like,
pissings?
Right?
Okay.
Or as, anyone with the ability to pee. I guess we can do that on any territory. But the cast that year, holy hell. We have Dana Carvey, Chris Farley, Phil Hartman, who was my favorite, Victoria Jackson, who was awesome and has now gone crazy, Mike Myers, Kevin Nealon did Weekend Update. He was one of my favorites ever. Chris Rock, Julia Sweeney, Adam Sandler, Tim Meadows, Rob Schneider, David Spade, and Al Franken was a featured player.
I remember all of that. Yeah.
I mean, it's insane.
Right about the time Wayne's World started taking off,
yes.
right? Or
yes.
was it
I think that was like 91.
Big? Yeah.
I mean, it was right in that early 90s time. Now, they did not do a Wayne's World sketch on this episode.
Okay.
But one of the best sketches that they did, and I don't know if you remember this. I do remember this. David Spade did a commercial about how to say the word salon, that the emphasis should be on the first syllable, salon. And how then they did like these charts of how it affects the growth of your hair, depending on how you say the word. It is hysterical. That. And then it was the one where you remember It's Pat.
I do remember It's Pat.
Which they could never get away with doing now. But it was where her office mates all decided to play strip poker to hopefully reveal her gender.
I do remember. I remember
but Pat
that
was
one.
like so good at it that she's fully clothed and everyone else is naked. I did love that sketch because Pat was so oblivious to like what anyone was trying to do. It was, oh my God. And who played Julia Sweeney?
Julia Sweeney, yeah.
So freaking funny. And then another one was, and I totally remember this, Chris Rock teaching white people how to survive the Apollo. Do you remember that? And like they do all of these like asides to people trying to do like the suggestions that Chris Rock makes. It was a really good one. So that was actually a pretty good episode and it got pretty good reviews. Now, here's what's funny though, is on the reruns, they use the goodbyes from the rehearsal instead of the actual live show, because the actual live show is very controversial because Nirvana, the band, they all started making out with each other.
Jeez.
On
live TV?
On live TV. So now on the reruns, if you try to find it, it's actually the goodbyes from the rehearsal.
That's surprising because I feel like today, especially with NBC, we're a little more progressive and they wouldn't have a problem with that. I wonder if they just got rid of the footage completely. Can you not?
No, they didn't get rid of the footage completely because, I saw still shots of it. When you look up the live show that aired, it has the goodbye. I'm sure you can find like the live episode with the actual goodbye, but all the reruns, I think on the streaming, all of that, they throw in Um,
The rehearsal.
yeah, the rehearsal goodbyes. I just love that they all started making out with each other. Like,
right?
what?
They
Why?
definitely left their mark. I don't even remember that at all. Of course, I remember watching Saturday Night Live back then, and usually after the first 45 minutes, I was bored with it because they had all the good stuff. You know, it's usually after, before the second musical number.
Yes.
Is usually when it starts petering out.
Yes. Yeah. I rarely enjoy the back half. I love through, up until the second musical number. And then I'm usually, I don't think there's ever been like a last sketch that I've really loved.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Every once in a while, they're better about that now, I feel like.
Yeah.
Because I know, well, ever since Kate McKinnon was on there, she's gone now. But she's just one of those people, every single sketch she did, it didn't matter.
Yeah.
I felt the same exact way about Phil Hartman. Exactly the same way. It did not matter what the sketch was. It's going to be brilliant.
Yeah. And Kristen Wiig, too, when she was on there.
And Bill Hader. That was one of the greatest casts ever. Do you remember the one where Kristen Wiig and Maya Rudolph and Bill Hader? I think Kristen Wiig may have been the host, or it was Maya Rudolph. One of them was. And they were doing the showcase. It was like Price is Right. And they were showcasing the items, and they had a golf cart, and like Maya Rudolph kept driving around in circles. And I love when they all lose it. It just, oh my God.
Yeah.
So good.
I think one of my favorites with Kristen Wiig and what's his name? Shit, from Portlandia.
Oh, Fred Armisen.
Yeah. Where they were always on the news. They were trying to sing.
The singers.
And he would sing, and she was trying to say the words that he was saying.
Those were so funny. Oh my God. I love, like, when SNL is good, it is so good. And this was certainly, like, they were back very quickly to have a January 11th episode. That never happens. But this was certainly, one of the best casts. Like, this was considered the big resurgence for.
Yeah. Because then they had a little bit of a down. And then we got Molly Shannon, Sherry O'Terry, Will Ferrell,
Chris Kattan.
And it started picking back up again. Yeah.
So good. And then in this last round where we had like Cecily Strong and Kate McKinnon and Adie Bryant and, Kenan Thompson has been on there forever.
Right. I haven't watched it in a long time.
We still watch it. We call it Saturday morning rerun.
Wasn't
or Sunday
Shannon
morning
just
rerun. She was. She did just host, and she did not do what's her face? Superstar.
Oh. Okay. Yeah.
Mary Catherine. And I was glad, because she's older now. Like, remember with Mary Catherine Gallagher, she threw herself around that stage.
Yeah.
But she did do Sally O'Malley, which was
with the Jonas
wonderful.
Brothers, right? I did
with
see
the Jonas
that. She
Brothers.
posted that to her Instagram or something.
She was the new choreographer. The Jonas Brothers. It is really good. It was great. I wish there would have been more throwbacks to her like original characters, but it was still really good.
Awesome.
Okay, so I feel like we should take a break now because there is a lot to talk about with this movie.
All right.
When she was assaulted by her doctor, Claire Bartel reported him to the police, and rather than go to prison for his crime, he killed himself. The shock of the accusations and suicide caused the doctor's pregnant wife, Peyton, to have a miscarriage. Driven mad with rage, Peyton poses as a nanny for the Bartel family. Her plan? To tear Claire's life apart, seduce her husband, and eventually murder the woman she blames for ruining her life.
Yeah, she did.
This is straight out of a soap opera.
This, when I was watching it, I'm like, we haven't had one of these movies for a while. And then I remembered, but we get them all the time on Lifetime. I feel like the early 90s and even some of the late 80s, we had those crazy psycho, either a lover or something like this.
Single white female.
Even it started kind of like with Fatal Attraction.
Yes.
And single white female, you had Body of Evidence with Madonna. Fatal
That's
Attraction,
right.
or not Fatal Attraction, the like crosser one.
Oh, Basic Instinct, Sliver.
Yeah.
We'll even throw that in there.
Yep.
Yeah.
Then this one kind of took it in a new direction, which is why I think everyone was like, ooh, because this was a pretty big deal. Yep.
It was a huge movie. This
Yeah.
one, I mean, it was made for a budget of 11 million, basically. And I mean, worldwide, it's gained over 88 million. But this was number one when it came out. This shot to number one. And I remember going to see this after a rehearsal with a bunch of friends that I was in the show with. Because why wouldn't you see The Hand That Rocks the Cradle when you're, newly 13? Of course, you're going to go see that movie. I remember all the guys having crushes on Rebecca De Mornay, which I'm looking at now. I'm like, y'all were crazy.
Right.
She would have murdered you. But I remember, what's funny about this is the little girl in it is named Emma.
I know.
And the nanny's name is Peyton.
I noticed that when I was watching it, I was like, oh, well, how perfect is that? She's like Erin's kids' names are both in this.
Weird is that. Now, I do remember seeing it and loving the name Peyton. And I had never heard it on a girl before because my great-grandfather was Peyton. So I knew I wanted to name my child that decades ago, probably around this movie. I think it was this movie that I was like, oh, it can be a girl. And wanting to name, if I had a future daughter, that was what she was going to be named. I did not realize when we named the other one Emma, that would just be recasting Hand That Rocks Cradle.
Right.
But yeah, here's, so going into this week, here were the top 10 movies, and you'll hear the number one that Hand That Rocks the Cradle replaced. So number 10, My Girl.
Okay.
Hello, one of the greatest movies.
Love that. Yeah.
And I did Annie with Anna Klumsky up in Chicago.
You did.
I was with her the second she found out she was cast in My Girl.
Do you think she remembers you?
She would probably remember me, I would think.
Have you ever written to her?
We kept up a little bit on Facebook before she got back into
like Veep and whatever.
The scene. It was when she went to college at University of Chicago, where one of my good friends was going. So he had some classes with her, and I was like, oh, yeah. So we got back briefly back then. But yeah, you know what? I'm going to reach out to her agent and be like, hey, who actually is her mother, who babysat me many times. So I feel like I could actually reach out to her and say, hey. The Addams Family was number 9.
Okay.
Featuring Adam's Groove, apparently, by Hammer. Star Trek VI, The Undiscovered Country, was number 8. Bugsy, number 7.
Never saw it.
JFK, number 6. Back and to the Left. Back and to the Left. Do you remember all that? You saw that, right?
I did a long time ago. I haven't seen it since. Yeah.
It was one of those movies I was obsessed with.
Really?
That and Schindler's List. And The Miracle Worker, I watched so many times. I don't know. And then I named my children after Hand That Rocks the Cradle. I am actually starting to get worried about myself. Number 5 was The Last Boy Scout. Was that the Bruce Willis one?
Bruce Willis, yeah. Okay. And was it one of the Wayans brothers?
Oh, was it?
I think so.
Oh, wow. Number 4 was The Prince of Tides.
Never saw it.
I didn't either. Number 3 was Beauty and the Beast. Okay. Amazing. Number 2, Father of the Bride.
Oh, I like that one.
Good. And oh my God. So good. And then number 1 was Hook.
Oh, I remember that one. You know what? Every time I hear about the movie Hook, I immediately think of how weird Julia Roberts looked as Tinkerbell.
So weird. Well, and it actually has a tie-in with this movie.
Yeah, it does.
Did you see that? So Rebecca De Mornay really wanted the part of Tinkerbell, didn't get it, and was like, that's it. I'm going dark. So she went to be Peyton. What was her name? Flanders?
Something like that. Yeah.
Something. Peyton over in, Peyton Mott actually is what her name was, over in Hand That Rocks Cradle. So yeah. And apparently, did you hear that Julia Roberts was nicknamed Tinker Hell.
Yeah, because she was horrible to everyone on set.
She was awful to work with, apparently.
I mean, I think it was because a lot of her stuff, she wasn't acting with anyone but a green screen.
Yeah. That would be really difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Now I feel like they're all so used to it.
Mm-hmm.
But back then, for sure, that would have been really hard.
Yeah.
So it made $7.6 million its opening weekend.
Okay.
So made almost all of its money back just on the opening weekend. And then it went on to have like great success. On Rotten Tomatoes, it has a score of 65%, which I feel for these types of movies is really great.
Mm-hmm. That's critics.
That was critics. The audience score was 61%. So I looked to see what some of the reviews were. Mm-hmm. So I picked a good one and, well, really, I just picked a good one, but then I'll tell you about some of the others. Okay. And I only ever look at top critics. I don't care about like.
Yeah. Like you're Joe Schmo sitting at home with his pants in his pants. And
on our other podcast, Here's Drinking with You, Kid, there was a critic who was with like some sort of, I don't think it was a paper. I'm assuming it was like an online blog, but it was called Low IQ Canadian. So I was like, okay, we're not looking these like randos sitting behind some screen. So this was a review from Michael Upchurch of the Seattle Times. Big one. He says, this is De Mornay's film, and she's a wicked treat, looking daggers at her enemy one moment and then glazing over with sweetness the next.
That's one thing I picked out a lot. I even made a note. I said, she's really good at flipping between crazy beige and innocent.
She is so good.
Immediately.
And you know, there was that scene where she is like in that greenhouse with Claire. And they're talking about how she's telling Claire about how her husband was murdered and they've never caught the family and blah, blah, blah. And talking to Claire. And then she gets up and has to go to the bathroom and starts like beating
the shit with a plunger.
With a plunger, she just starts beating the shit out of everything. And then she just like takes deep breaths and it reminded me of Annette Bening in American Beauty.
Yep. It also reminded me of at a show that I directed you and some other folks in. I'm not going to say the cast person's name, but I was out front of the theater smoking a cigarette, and she got out of her car and she parked a ways away from the theater, got out of her car and just screamed bloody murder and threw something across the parking lot that I think she saw me outside, and she got back in her car and drove around the block and then come back and walked in and was like, hey, how's it going?
No. Did you say anything like?
Nope. Okay, I was just like, okay, she's something.
Now, of course, there were some bad reviews, but honestly, I mean, the bad reviews are mostly talking about an amateur directing style or cheap, tricks that were being used to like set up the not the scares, but like the thrill or suspense or whatever. I completely disagreed with all of it. So I didn't even bother quoting any of them on it because I thought those were weird things to pick apart for me.
Right. I mean, they were almost, they might be weird, but sometimes those weird things are what pushes the plot forward.
Right.
I don't feel like there was anything that I couldn't suspend disbelief for in this movie.
Yeah, honestly, the only thing, and Gene Siskel in his review of it actually hit on it. He said basically, and I'm only like quoting a bit of this, that quote, the casual way in which the nanny is hired in an early scene by the mother, end quote, was unrealistic.
Yeah.
Which, yes, of course it was. Like,
especially after she had just talked about how she was having such a hard time finding anyone.
Yes.
I felt like she kind of set up that she was super picky. And then all of a sudden she was just so, oh yeah, you're perfect.
Yeah,
Why don't you start tomorrow?
You're perfect. That bugged me. And having someone unvetted stay in my house with my children, I was like, even back then, it would be like, wait, I'm going to need some recommendation. Because she didn't leave. She said she would leave the recommendation letter. She didn't. She had already won her over.
Right.
So
my other thing was like, would Julianne Moore really have died in the greenhouse?
With the glass dropping? I know, she wouldn't have.
Unless there was like one piece that perfectly severed one of her arteries or hit her heart or something.
Yeah.
But when they saw her, she was just laying there. She just had glass shards around her.
Yeah, girl, you would have been fine. You would have
Right.
gotten some cuts. You would not have
Yeah.
been like, yeah,
Right.
no, that was a little far-fetched, of course. He found Gene Siskel found some of the thrills fun, but he also said that it was a bit distasteful.
Ooh.
Which I was like, I wonder what he's talking about. I honestly could not. I don't know. I couldn't think of what he was talking about.
One thing that really disturbed me was when she was nursing the baby.
Oh my God.
And I realized she had just like miscarried.
Right.
So she still had breast milk. She had been pumping.
Yeah.
We find out later on.
Yes.
But when she's breastfeeding someone else's baby, that was just like, ugh.
That's so gross.
Yeah.
She planned this. I mean, and played it so well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, damn, she thought of everything. And I love that what the audience was let in on. Like, we could see it coming up right before it would happen. We'd be like, oh no, the proposal, like that she shredded and threw away. And, and the whole, just, I loved how in the directing that he would cut to things like you would see Julianne Moore's lighter, just kind of in the frame, and you would see the inhaler in the frame or things like that. Like you would catch on to them. And especially when you watch it a second time and know what you're looking for, I thought that was great. Like that didn't seem like cheap tricks to me.
Right.
Now, I will say that there is no freaking way in this world that Ernie Hudson would be allowed to play Solomon.
No. And there would be no way that they would let the character of Peyton call him the name that she did.
No, I cannot. I couldn't, because you had sent me that. It was right before I was going to be watching it. And you sent me that, and immediately, like, Odell, seriously, I think I must have watched this movie 50 times back when it came out because you sent it to me. I was like, oh my God, I remember that outfit. I remember her slapping him. I remember like the tears coming down. I thought he was so good in this movie. The tears coming down his face when she was done. The things she was saying to him and how freaking creepy she was and dark and dangerous.
Yep.
That she was saying it to him.
Yeah. It really caught me off guard because I hadn't seen this movie since college. So I watched it again for the first time, probably in, a good, that was 94. So almost 20 years since I'd last seen it. So
30.
Oh God. Yeah. 30 years.
30 years.
Shit.
Yeah.
So it's been a while.
Horrifying?
It's been a while.
I feel like it's held up. I really do. Aside from some, like inappropriate, insensitive things that were said and stuff, I feel like I loved the cast.
Yeah, it was great. I feel like
and I probably should say, I'm sorry, I didn't even say who was in it.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
Let me go and say that. Okay. So this movie, and I also was going to say at the same time this was released, another movie that came out that day was Cuffs. Do you remember that? Kuffs. No. It was Christian Slater, Mila Jovovich, and Tony Goldwyn. I've never heard of this movie.
No.
Obviously overshadowed by Hand That Rocks the Cradle. But we have Rebecca De Mornay, who is mostly known for Risky Business. Annabella Shora, which I had to look up how to say because I would always say Skiora.
I did too.
Okay. Shora, who was in Jungle Fever back then. I don't know if you remember that. Matt McCoy, who played the husband, Michael, he's had like such random parts in Jack Ryan, Seinfeld, Silicon Valley, like just random bit parts.
Back then, but from Police Academy, because he took over, because when in that franchise, Steve Guttenberg left and he kind of took over as one of the oddball cops, the main oddball.
That's right.
In Police Academy. Yeah.
Well, and then, of course, Ernie Hudson played Solomon, and we knew him from Ghostbusters, and we'll forever love that man. Julianne Moore, this was like her first big thing.
Yes, and
she's known from everything.
Was horrible.
It was so early 90s. I remember back in 92 thinking she was so sleek. Oh my gosh, it is so embarrassing now. And her in that black dress, just beautiful. I was obsessed with her back then. But of course, she's been in Boogie Nights and Magnolia and The Kids Are All Right, which is an amazing movie.
I think my favorite movie of hers is The End of the Affair with Ralph Fiennes. And
I never saw that movie.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Oh, sorry, I just did it. And then it introduced a young Madeline Zima who played Emma. And the only thing that I remember even back then that drove me crazy about this girl is the way she would say Peyton's name. Peyton is how she would say it. Drove me nuts. You know what else drove me nuts? Was how Claire would inhale on her inhaler.
Yeah, because I had asthma growing up, and you don't get the medication administered if you don't close your lips around the inhaler. And she just like spraying it in her mouth like it was some Banaka or something.
Yes. It drove me crazy because my youngest, my own little Peyton, has asthma. And so, the oldest one just came home. She has asthma. And so we learned how to properly administer it. That drove me crazy. However, back then I assumed that's how it was, but I didn't have asthma. I had no idea.
Yeah. The way she portrayed it, like she was really could not breathe. And I could feel it because I had just childhood asthma. So it's gone now. But when she was struggling to breathe, I could still feel it in my chest, like how horrible it is. I'm like, girl, wrap your lips around that shit and suck.
Yes. That scene where we've seen Madeline, Julia Moore go into the greenhouse and get killed by some glass falling on her, whatever. But then Claire, when she has that asthma attack and is on the ground and barely breathing,
had purposefully emptied all of her inhalers.
One of those, damn. And the whole time, did you realize that throughout the entire movie, they keep singing, it's all Gilbert and Sullivan stuff. The whole thing is Pirates of Penzance.
Yep.
It's so creepy. So creepy. And even at the end, this music that's playing is this beautiful string version of Poor Wandering One from Pirates
What's funny is this is the second movie, and this is our fourth one we've done. And it's the second one that's had something related to Pirates of Penzance, because in Little Darlings,
Christy McNichol.
Well, yeah, but in Little Darlings, there was at the camp, one of the houses, because they had the little musical review, they were doing that Climbing Over Rocky Mountains, so the song that the sisters sing in Pirates of Penzance.
Did we even talk? I don't think I even realized that.
Yeah. Yep.
I just thought of Christy McNichol because she's in your favorite movie, The Pirate movie, which is based on whatever.
Right.
Oh my God. When are we watching that one?
Hopefully soon.
Do my mental push-ups. Well, I did read about Madeline Zima, who played Emma. I read that she's had roles in Hacks, Perry Mason. She actually does a lot of little bit roles here.
I've watched Hacks. I've never watched Perry Mason or what was the other one?
Good Girls or You.
I haven't watched You.
Oh.
I don't
You
think I
and
watched
Perry
Good Girls
Mason are
either.
very good. I haven't watched Good Girls. But she's done all right for herself. And then it was directed by Curtis Hanson, who also directed LA Confidential, which was a huge movie, and 8 Mile.
Okay.
And it was written by Amanda Silver, who wrote Jurassic World.
Okay.
And the live action Mulan.
Okay.
I mean, so obviously they've had long careers, that it's now 30 years later. So I do want to say some people, since I just told you the cast, here were some other people that were considered. Kevin Spacey.
For the husband, right? I remember reading that. Yeah.
And Christopher McDonald. Now, I think that Matt McCoy was perfectly cast.
Why am I thinking of Christopher? Okay. Not Christopher McDonald. Is that also a singer?
You're thinking Michael
McDonald, yeah.
Oh my God.
I was like, why? Was he trying to get into film?
That would have been incredible had he been considered. I would really like to see that version, actually. Sybil Shepherd was considered for Peyton.
Oh.
But she said that, she is a staunch feminist, said this does not represent women very well. I am not doing it. So that was where she was. And then in an earlier version of the screenplay, Madeline did not get killed in the greenhouse. It was actually Emma who went in the greenhouse but didn't get killed.
Right.
And then Madeline, Peyton rigged something so that our car would explode when she lit a cigarette.
See, I think that's what would have happened if this had been on Lifetime.
Oh, absolutely.
That would have been. I feel like this movie paved the way for Lifetime movies, mystery movies, or whatever that channel is now. Yes. I don't feel like Lifetime would have the success that it has now without this movie, because we don't see these types of movies in the theater now.
No,
and when they are in the theater, they're stupid. Like the last one that I remember about like someone going crazy was with Beyonce and
I was about to say that Beyonce
Allie
one.
Larder or whatever from Final Destination and Heroes.
Allie Larder. Yes. That was the last one I really remember.
Yeah. I never watched it. I just remember hearing it was horrible, but yeah, these are always on Lifetime. It just looked like a
play. Now we do see some where it's kind of a role reversal. Like one movie I love that's very much like stalkerish, but by a guy is The Gift with Jason Bateman and
I haven't seen
Rebecca
that.
Hall. And it was really good. It kind of flipped it on its head. It was really good. But we don't see many.
Yeah, 90s and early 2000s was when, I think the last one I remember seeing in the theater was Swim Fan. And I think I saw that with you.
Oh, that's right. Oh, God, we did. I totally who was that girl?
Erica Christensen.
And then,
wasn't it Penn Badgley?
It was the dude Penn Badgley.
He looked like him. I don't think it was him.
I'm almost positive it was Penn Badgley.
I'm going to look.
Of course, I'm looking this up right now. Jesse Bradford.
Mm-hmm.
It was the lawnmower guy who was Jesse Bradford?
No, the lawnmower guy from Desperate Housewives was Jesse somebody else.
Yes. Oh, Jesse Bradford was in Bring It On.
Yeah.
That's right. So anyway, okay. Wait, hold on. I'm sorry. Where did my notes go? Oh, this movie was filmed I'm sure you recognized some things. It was filmed in Washington.
Mm-hmm. Up near Seattle.
It was in Issaquah. Is that right? Issaquah?
Yes,
Issaquah.
Yeah.
And Seattle and Tacoma.
Mm-hmm.
And in case anyone is wondering, the title comes from a poem by William Ross Wallace back in the 18th century.
Yeah, the hand that rocks the cradle is
the hand that rules the world.
Hand that rules the world, yeah.
Basically, it was an ode to mothers that we kind of determine the future of the world because of how we raise the children.
Got it.
Yeah.
How about we take a quick break? I just noticed we've been going for almost 30 minutes, and then we'll come back and talk some more.
All right. So one of the things I was thinking of that we should talk about is talk about the therapy that is needed.
A lot.
For, all the characters in this movie. Now, with all of our awareness with mental health and everything, a woman going through, I had more sympathy for Peyton this time.
Right.
Because, she, obviously has an asshole for a husband.
Mm-hmm.
He kills himself while she's pregnant. And he kills himself because he was guilty of assaulting other pregnant women.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
She loses
Claire was
everything.
Just the one who came forward first. Because here's my question, though. My first thing that I wrote down was, do they do breast exams during pregnancy?
They do.
Pregnant,
No, they do not do breast exams during pregnancy. They will, if it's your first time going to a doctor and it's a well woman exam, that is when they check the breasts. Now, I have a wonderful OBGYN who I go to. I kind of wish she would feel them a little longer. She doesn't. It's fine.
Right. She was.
But it is a quick exam. He lingered. my gyno certainly doesn't have a conversation with me, like a full on conversation with me as she's examining my breasts. And
Right.
it's not like he would hold and squeeze.
Mhm.
It is not that. It's like little fingers going everywhere to feel for any bumps. And then you move on to the next one.
Right. So that's
So no.
my question was, I don't think they've ever done that during pregnancy. I don't see why they would. So why did she agree to that? Like, she didn't question it at all. He's like, let's just do a breast exam. So she's like, okay. She lays back and she's like, okay, here we go.
Yeah. I don't know. I mean, if in the early 90s, it was a little different, because remember I think the early 2000s, when I had my first like vagina exam, I mean, the woman said she had to go through my butt to feel the tip of my, whatever, my vag, I don't know, or the tip of my cervix or something.
Okay.
I come to find out later, she didn't have to go on my butt. I think I was assaulted. I don't know. But I do know that when, like, in my situation, I was going to someone for the first time. Right. But in this situation, I mean, he did say, well, I like to give my first time patients like a full workup or something. I can't remember how he put it, but it was so gross. She was so far, like, she was at least she was in her second trimester, right? Oh, yes, for sure.
So I feel that, I don't know, maybe just back then women didn't think of like, okay, I can question this, but I feel like today
you would never get away with it.
Yeah.
No, you would never. You could get away. I mean, I can totally see how he got away with slipping off that glove. 100%, because you're just laying back. You're not thinking anything, Schmitty, that's what I call mine. She could have, I'm completely numb down there. Y'all, come on now. There's like a baby pushing on it. Do whatever you want.
Right.
But no, with this one, like, he said that at the beginning about it being it was so creepy.
It was weird. So she needs therapy for that.
Absolutely. For the assault. And then after this whole, there was that whole section where they think Solomon has been like touching the daughter. Why wasn't he arrested? He was just like sent on back to Better Days or whatever, the mental health place.
Yeah.
There was absolutely no repercussion for that.
No.
So thinking that your daughter is going through that, and Peyton played that so well about forming that like secret club, because there is, that is why, like, I'll have students that'll be like, can I tell you a secret? And I always go, nope, absolutely not. And then if they are like, oh, I want to do it, but just a secret, I'll be like, no, I'm going to call your mom right now. I'm just going to let her know.
Right.
Because I don't want there to be any of that shit.
Right.
No, you don't do that.
Giving them the go ahead or telling them it's a great idea or something. And then it comes back to you.
Yeah. Yes. Finding her best friend in the greenhouse. Dead. Facing death herself, having to be was she like on a ventilator?
Yeah.
And conscious? Do they normally do that?
I don't think so.
Okay. And the other thing I thought about is they never would have said her name and photo.
No, in the news. That's another thing. I was like, I don't think that's legal.
No. And maybe it was back then. Maybe privacy laws were a little different. I don't know. That never would have happened. It was like that. There was a rape case that I swear it felt like it came right out of what was that movie with the Accused? Where they didn't allow cameras inside the courtroom, but it was the first televised trial. They wouldn't let rape trial. They wouldn't let cameras record the victim. They wouldn't let them show her. So they just had audio, but then she had to state her full name and address.
Oh my God.
And they hadn't thought about that. And this was going out live.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. But that's what I thought of when I saw her picture. I was like, oh, no. I don't think you can't do that. So Claire's definitely going to need that therapy. Peyton should have had therapy.
Yeah.
Through all of, I don't know. There wasn't really an indication of how much time passed between her getting assaulted, Claire getting assaulted, and him killing himself.
Right.
So I have no idea.
Yeah. It was, and how long it was between when she miscarried and his death, and then when she went to apply for the job.
Yeah, because I think the baby, I remember when she took the baby out for a stroll in the park, she said the baby was 3 months.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I don't know. I was very confused on time. I was thinking that maybe they were kind of exactly the same pregnancy at the same time, but yeah, I wasn't sure about that. But Peyton clearly needed help.
Yeah. And I was surprised that I don't know what they would do, but you have a woman whose husband killed himself. You just lost your baby. You don't have other family. I guess the hospital isn't thinking of that. They're thinking we need this bed because we have other patients here.
Right.
But I feel like there would be some sort of caseworker or something at the hospital that would then check on her.
You would think so.
Yeah.
And then she was also going to be left like destitute.
Mm-hmm.
She had all of his assets were frozen. All of his, like everything that he had was basically taken.
Right.
Which I didn't 100% understand that either.
Yeah.
But I guess it's because I'm sure that like in a lot of insurance clauses, if it's suicide, then you don't get anything or something to that effect.
More than likely because of the lawsuit that was ensuing because of these accusations, that there would be payments made to the victims. And so they had to make sure that she didn't go spend it all.
Right. That is a curious thing. Like when the defendant's not going to be there to defend himself.
Yeah. Look at us going back to our true crime.
I know. We can't help it. And then we talk about the amount of issues that little Emma is going to face as she gets older. Yep. Girl.
I feel like she would be in a group session with the little girl from Fatal Attraction who had her bunny boiled.
Yes. Yes. Oh my God. These are two little girls that if there was a game of who has it worse, like they would win.
Yeah.
They're going to win no matter what you've been through in your child. They're going to win.
Yeah.
I mean, this was that little girl was so sweet and cute, except how she said Peyton. But the amount of therapy that she would need after this. And then what happens with the baby who has been brought up like in these formative months when you're creating that bond? Because I mean, I can tell you as a mom, like I didn't see Emma for the first 24, 36 hours after giving birth because I had such a high fever and I'd lost so much blood. That just those 36 hours makes a huge difference in the next few months trying to bond. It's just, it does. So in this situation, my God, he was like being breastfed and attached to another woman for months.
Yeah. And she would like go not only breastfeeding him, but spending so much time with him one-on-one while everyone else was sleeping. Yes. And then, during the day, he was with her. So
I mean, and that's like, I'm sorry. I don't understand the necessity for the nanny.
Yeah.
When she doesn't work, right?
No, and it was so that she could put in this greenhouse, but she had all those men there helping her build the greenhouse.
Like, so. What are you getting up there putting in the glass now?
Right. I mean, I saw her move some rocks and then she was basically just out there telling people what to do.
So that's where I'm like, why did the nanny even live with you guys?
Right.
During the day, sure. Hey, can you come by 3 times a week so I can have a break and work on this project? Sure. You're not spending the night walking around in your white nightie that like is completely sheer, then walking out in the rain where it's getting all wet and no, bish.
Yeah, then it's seducing. Did you notice that when she dropped the ice cubes and what's his name walks in on her, she's picking the ice cubes up and she puts them back in the freezer. He's picking them up. I was like, yes, ew. And he didn't say anything.
Yes. I'm sitting there like, Where is the look of mortification on your face, Peyton?
Right.
That you were just caught putting in dirty ice cubes. That's where I thought we were at. But no. And then he's looking at her with his eyes like all, oh, you're so dreamy. Girl, she's just trying to kill you guys with some bacteria, germs.
And do anything she can
I did
to make
notice
you sick.
that. That cracked me up. Absolutely cracked me up. Okay, so
the punch in the face when Claire punched her.
Threw her across the damn room.
But then there was no blood. I'm like, that punch was hard enough to throw her across the table.
There should be blood streaming.
No blood. Yeah. Yeah.
I mean, when you get a nose injury, it is streaming.
Mm-hmm.
And she kept like wiping underneath it. And I'm like, girl, there's nothing there.
No, I mean, great acting, but makeup, can we get makeup here on set, please, to give you something to wipe away?
Because you should have a completely bloody face.
Yeah.
Yeah, that punch cracked me up. I've never thrown a punch, but I'd like to believe that that's what mine would look like. Anyone I hit would go sailing. That would be amazing. She went on that table and over.
Mm-hmm.
Oh my gosh.
You can see her jumping.
Right.
Because they do it from the front where Claire's throws the punch, and then the camera pans behind her and you can just see her jump over onto the table.
Yes.
Great acrobatics.
My God, I love it. And then she lands on the wooden stake at the end.
Yes.
Which part of me was waiting to see if when they looked over, if she would like be gone.
Like Michael Myers.
Like it would be a Michael Myers thing. That's what I was kind of hoping for. But that's all right. That's all right. The house was beautiful.
It was.
I guess you make a lot as a genetic engineer.
And
whatever Michael was.
He gives the address of the house at one point when he calls the cops. That's the actual address of the house.
It's like 818 Yakima or something.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I saw that was the house, the actual house. And then the one that the Motts lived in, the real like nice modern one or whatever, that was Ted Danson's house in Made in America, I think was.
Yeah. I did.
That was
with him and Whoopi Goldberg, right?
I think so. Yeah.
Yeah. Something else I thought would be
just all,
would be fun is if for these we do a first line, last line. So it was the first line of the movie and the last line of the movie.
Oh, that's a great idea.
So for this one, it was the first thing we actually hear from one of the characters is the dad saying, "I am the captain of the Pinafore."
Oh, yes.
But then Claire, that wasn't lyrics from a song, was "It's almost ready, you guys." But then the last line of the movie was, "Oh boy."
Oh, it's Solomon.
Like when they're leaving the attic.
Being allowed to take the
how random the "oh boy" is the last word.
Ended the script.
Yeah, of this crazy, like she just died. All of you are still alive, barely escaped with your lives, and the last line of the movie is "oh boy."
Oh boy. That's really funny. I need to start paying attention to that and including that. Incredible.
Right. What else you got?
That's all I've got. Depending on time, I was going to do a little walk in their shoes. What would you do?
What would I do? In whose shoes?
Like, let's put you in Peyton's shoes. Let's put you in Peyton's shoes. Hold on.
Okay.
Let me get specific because I want to go ahead and get you in the house. I don't want you to avoid that.
Yeah, because I'm like,
set on revenge.
First, I would not be in the house. That's
I know, exactly. No, I'm getting you in the house. Okay. What would you... No, I'm going to put you in Michael's. You walk in and Peyton's picking up the ice cubes from the floor. What do you say?
What the hell are you doing? Because I would not even... Back then, I probably would have been married, but in the closet.
Right.
So she would have been trying to like flash her titties through her see-through nightgown. And I would have been like, bitch. And I would have walked up. I would have taken the ice cubes out and I would have looked her right in the eye the entire time I did it. Took that ice cube tray out of the freezer, dumped it in the fridge, put it back in the freezer and said, "You nasty." And then went back to bed.
You nasty. That is fantastic. That is an excellent one. Okay, let's say you were in Claire's shoes and you came, let me think, hold on. You came home, and when you found Julianne Moore, you would do the exact same thing. You would go to call 911. Like she did everything right in that one.
Yeah.
That's one thing with this movie. I feel like everyone did everything right.
Yeah, except for hiring her. But then.
Except for the hiring. Yeah. I would have been like, I'm going to need those recommendations from you.
Right.
Or those referrals for sure.
Yeah.
And I love that Solomon just like saw through Peyton from the start.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, she's so psychotic.
Psychotic.
Okay, so really the only thing we would change as far as walking in people's shoes is not allowing that fucking ice tray to go back in the freezer.
I mean, if we learned anything, don't pick the ice up and put it back in the freezer.
Don't do that. And maybe don't hire a woman who just like walked in front of a bus.
Right, to stop it for you.
It's a little psychotic.
And it has mom jeans that the waist goes up to beneath her tits.
Oh my gosh. For reals. My Z Cavaricis did go up really high.
Yeah, Z calves. They did that.
Love them.
All right. So is it time for trivia?
Time for trivia. I went straight up 90s with this.
All right.
Obviously, because we're in the 90s.
Let me get the
timer. Yes.
Timer. Okay.
These I think are really good.
Okay.
All right. What is the name of the group responsible for Macarena?
The group responsible?
Yes. Who put it out there?
I don't know.
That would be Los Del Rio.
Oh, okay.
That was the group. I told you about how my mom called it the Macanara.
I did not know
Erin,
that.
I just learned the best dance. It is called the Macanara. And then she did it. And I was like, I can't with any of this.
Oh, funny.
All right. Next question. You should have gotten that.
Yeah, I didn't know. I don't think I ever knew their name.
All right. Who is Russia's first elected president? This happened in the 90s.
Wasn't Putin. I can't think of his name. I don't know.
Boris Yeltsin.
Oh, yep.
All right. Let's try this again.
All right.
Very disappointed so far. Macaulay Culkin was paid $1 million, the first child star ever to do so. For what film?
The Good Son.
No.
Home Alone.
No.
Home
How many
Alone 2.
chances do we? No. It was for My Girl.
Oh, God. I forgot he was in that. Okay.
He was the little one with allergies. All right. Man, you are really losing at this one. Here's the next question. What was the most watched TV episode of the 1990s as a whole?
The Friends? No. I don't know.
Because that was later. It was Cheers. Finale of Cheers.
Oh, that was in the 90s?
1993.
Yeah, see, I never watched Cheers.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh. See, all of these I could have answered. But this was my stuff. I forget that we had very different experiences
Right.
growing up. Okay. Last question.
All right.
You should have gotten all of these, but here's one. Okay. What band is featured on Beavis's shirt?
Metallica.
Very good. Thank you. Okay, you got one.
We have to let it go.
Oh, that's right.
I almost said AC/DC, but that was Butthead.
Yes, I would have gotten. I'm amazed that you knew that you knew the difference between
I
them.
did watch Beavis and Butthead a lot.
Did you?
Yes, I love that.
Okay.
All right. So next week, it's my personal pick.
Yes.
Mystic Pizza. It's
I'm
available
very
on
excited to watch this
HBO
one again.
right now. And then 2 weeks from now, it's Erin's personal pick, which is...
Well, since we actually, God, this is so perfect because you have not seen it.
I haven't.
Well, no, I can pick episodes too, right?
Oh, well, you said last time you said we were going to do Madonna Truth or Dare. So.
Oh, that's right. I did. I'm so sorry because a new one just came into my head. Okay. Yes. Madonna Truth or Dare. Because I have not seen that in ages. And I just read an update about Madonna's hairstylist. So that reminded me of it. And I was like, oh, I've got to watch that again. Because there was one part of it made me super uncomfortable now that I think about it.
Okay. Yeah. I used to be obsessed with that one.
Oh my
gosh.
And
then, so yeah, Mystic Pizza, then Truth or Dare. And then we won't be picking outright. We're going to let the wheel pick every week. It's just that Erin and I will have a list of 15 movies that we have picked of our own. So it's like we're still picking it, but we're also letting the wheel do it because I like the excitement of the wheel.
It's like making your Amazon wish list and people picking from that for your birthday. You know, it's going to be something you want, but you don't know what.
Exactly.
Oh, very exciting.
All right. Well, thanks for traveling back to 1992 with us. Next week, we'll be in 1988.
Oh, that's a good year.
So good time. I was still in high school, but barely.
Ooh, all right. I was in 4th grade. I've got stories.
Well, y'all have a good week. We'll see you next time. Thanks so much for listening. Please be sure to tell all of your friends about us, especially any fellow Gen Xers.
And don't forget to follow us on social media and your favorite podcast app. And be sure you're set to auto download so you never miss an episode. And while you're there, leave us a 5-star rating.
Don't forget to visit backwherewebelong.com to gain access to our ultimate playlists, pick up some merch, and do a deeper dive into all of our episodes. Thanks again.
We'll see you next week.